there's times whenever I stand here and these people are belittling me, they're degrading me, they're humiliating me. See, for about a second I'd say to myself, I know what I would give you, boy. No, they get about a mile up the road, then I'll just wise up, back to catch myself on again and get a grip. Like, what am I to do? Who am I to turn to? I'd say these people drive quite a few young fellas into, or if you want to call it, under the arms of violence, or down the path of violence, or down the road of violence, or...
Despite Catholic misgivings, the UDR enjoys unequivocal support from the government.
Do you have confidence in the UDR?
Yes, indeed, of course. The UDR have done remarkable work. As you know, they have suffered greatly.
The government stresses the regiment is an integral part of the British Army. Its senior officers are predominantly English, seconded from other regiments.
What we say to the Catholic community is, we do not tolerate sectarian behaviour in this regiment. And where there are cases of sectarian behaviour brought to our attention and the soldier is found guilty, then under normal circumstances he will be dismissed the regiment.
But Panorama has investigated a number of cases which challenge the Brigadier's claim. Take, for example, the case of Soldier A, whom we won't name for fear of reprisal against him by the IRA. This court document shows that in March 1987 he was convicted of assaulting a Catholic. These statements show that he also assaulted Catholics on 2 further occasions while on duty, with his rifle and his boot. But although the Ministry of Defence paid out £1,300 damages, the assaults weren't entered on his service record, and the soldier is still in the UDR today.
If the regiment is screening soldiers for sectarian conduct as scrupulously as the regiment claims, surely this sort of information should be on his record.
That's a matter of opinion. Obviously we do screen people, but we don't have a regimental representative sitting in every court in the land when it sits. So unless somebody formally notifies the regiment of it, we would not know about it.
Do you think it might be wise to review whether this soldier should remain in the regiment?
That is not something I feel I should discuss on television. It is, every case is looked at individually. Circumstances are different, and we will make the appropriate decision in due course of time.
But if you put yourself in the position of a Catholic person living in this area, what is that Catholic person supposed to make of the regiment when they see this man on a checkpoint and they know that he's been involved in 3 separate assaults on Catholics?
I doubt whether everybody in the Catholic population is aware of this particular individual's circumstances, but that's not the point. The point is that we do not accept in the regiment any form of sectarian behaviour at roadblocks.
Panorama has investigated a second incident involving a UDR man we'll call Soldier B and his patrol. It happened outside this farmhouse in Pomeroy. Soldier B was dismissed the regiment after being convicted of punching a young Catholic at a checkpoint here.
He had 2 bags of meal in his car, which he was...
But the local councillor wants to know why, shortly before the court case, a UDR patrol harassed the main prosecution witness, a local farmer named Mr. Quinn, and damaged his car.
I believe it was an attempt to intimidate Mr. Quinn, because he was obviously an independent and vital witness in the case against the UDR man who had struck Mr. Quinn's neighbour just across the road here.
Were there any threats to him?
I don't think there were any direct threats at that particular time, but on the following Sunday morning, in the early hours of the morning, Mr. Quinn got a phone call. When he answered the phone, a voice purporting to be the voice of the UVF told Mr. Quinn he had 2 days to get out.
When the case came to court here in Cookstown, the prosecution suggested that Soldier B's patrol had covered up for him by lying. Soldier B had told the court that, far from hitting the youth, he'd neither seen nor spoken to anyone at the checkpoint, and he said that the checkpoint had been held at a different place and at a different time. Soldier B's colleagues, 2 privates and a lance corporal, all gave sworn evidence supporting his story. But the judge didn't believe them and said there'd been what he described as a sort of conspiracy.
do you think it might not be sensible for the UDR to institute some sort of inquiry into Soldier B's colleagues, who, as far as the judge was concerned anyway, clearly hadn't been telling the truth when they had taken their oath in the witness box?
The case you're referring to, as I've said, we are reviewing it at the moment and no decision has been made. I don't at the moment see any particular reason why we should start some major inquiry into what happened or did not happen in the court.
But you surely can't have soldiers in a regiment which you claim take such a tough and disciplined attitude to sectarian behaviour. You clearly can't have soldiers in a regiment who are prepared to go into court and give sworn evidence, untruthful sworn evidence, can you?
You are talking about what happened in the court and what was and was not said. I do not know what was or was not said. And what you are doing, of course, is you are harping on the fact that in this particular case, we have got a soldier who has been found guilty of a case. We will look at that case. I agree with you that our professional conduct should be perfect. And I actually genuinely believe that the only day our image will change is when everybody, nationalist or otherwise, as they approach a roadblock, says, who's running the vehicle checkpoint? And when they say, oh, it's the UDR, thank goodness for that, because they're now so polite and so professional, that is when our image will change. And we are now concentrating a great deal on making absolutely sure and explain to our soldiers that communicating with the public is a skill and it has to be taught. The police are very good at it. We're getting better, and we've still got room for improvement.
Sometimes the police accompany UDR patrols to take the friction out of contact with the nationalist population. Many Catholics say they've more trust in the police because they've shown they can be even-handed. Police accompaniment of UDR patrols is a long overdue reform. For 20 years, British governments have been telling Dublin the UDR operates only in support of the RUC. In 1985, at the signing of the Anglo-Irish Agreement, Britain gave an undertaking to the Irish government. The actual wording of the communiqué is now the subject of differing interpretations. It promised that all operations by the army should be accompanied by the police, save in the most exceptional circumstances. This would be accomplished as rapidly as possible. 4 years on, Britain has yet to fulfill its promise. When the Anglo-Irish Treaty was signed, the RUC's Chief Constable was Sir Jack Herman. He says he'd have needed an extra 1,500 officers for the government to fulfill its promise to Dublin, but he never got the funds.
Well, where were you then expected to provide the extra manpower in order for the British government to fulfill its promise to the Irish government?
To the extent that that promise was given, we could never have fulfilled it, nor did we attempt to do it.
No, but where did the British government, where did the government expect you to find the extra men?
I'm not sure where they expected them to be found, but it was made abundantly clear to them that they could not be found within the resources which we had.
Do you think the British government had any business making these promises to the Irish government without making quite sure that you, as Chief Constable, had the manpower to deliver them?
In the listening to the wording of the communique to which you referred, I see a let-out, if I may use that phrase, by government, and there was a quiet recognition there that that would take some considerable time, certainly within their knowledge of the availability, or rather the lack of availability of resources within the RUC to fulfill it in the foreseeable future.
Well, obviously it's a breach of faith when two governments sit down and negotiate an agreement that has been recognised internationally, an agreement that has been welcomed, an agreement that, for our part, is being followed diligently and supported along the way, at very great cost, might I add. But of course, those solemn assurances were never lived up to. Those solemn assurances have never been put into practice, and I said that with very deep regret.
Why do you think that is?
Because the political will wasn't there to so do.
I remind you that the commitment was qualified in the words that I've used, and the Irish government, in conversation with us, recognised that there are operational constraints and resources which need to be taken into account in making that decision.
That's a slightly different complexion, that The Irish Foreign Minister, Jerry Collins, put on it to us yesterday. He regards Britain's conduct in this matter as a breach of faith.
Well, he may say things. I'm not in any way suggesting that he says different things to us, but the conversations which I have had within the conference to him, while he has put the point firmly and vigorously, has actually acknowledged that there are operational circumstances and constraints which actually have to weigh with the security forces' decisions.
Are we ever going to see full police accompaniment, save in the most exceptional circumstances?
When Mr. Collins and I have got into conversation about this, it is quite clear that he sees a shading of the agreement. In other words, although the agreement actually is phrased in the way that it is, he wishes to see particular applications of the agreement, particular applications of the wording of the communique in particular ways, and that's something which the two governments are in fact exploring further.